A new study is taking a look at Muslim voters in the U.S. ahead of the 2020 presidential election. According to the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, Islamophobia rose slightly in the U.S. this year. And while Muslims are least likely to approve of President Trump compared to other religious groups, they are more likely to express optimism about the direction of the country. Dalia Mogahed is Director of Research at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, and she joins me now from Washington. Dalia, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Elaine.
So this study found the president's approval rating among Muslims plummeted between 2016 and 2019. What led to the drop?
Well, I think the drop was simply the election of President Trump. Muslim Americans had a very high approval rating of President Obama, and when he left office and President Trump was elected, their approval rating of the president simply went down as a result of who was in the office.
Well, compared to other religious groups, though, Muslims were more hopeful about the direction of the country than the year before. And I wonder why you think that is.
Well, it was a bit of a puzzle for us as well. And then we looked at when the study was fielded, and it was in January. So first of all, most of the country was feeling pretty pessimistic because of the government shutdown, and Muslims are no exception. I just want to emphasize that the improvement was pretty slight, but one thing had happened that was historical for American Muslims, which is the election of 2 Muslim women to Congress, and that may have elevated their sense of optimism during that time.
Well, looking at voter registration, Muslims lag compared to other groups, but more have registered to vote since the election of President Trump. Can we expect that number to continue to grow in the coming years, you think?
I think it will grow, and it's because there's such a concerted effort in Muslim civil society to increase that number. And so I think the sense of, a combination of both, maybe a sense of optimism, but also a sense of being very unsatisfied with the current administration will drive many more Muslims to vote. You know, what we found when we looked at why people aren't voting, it's not that they it's not that they think it's somehow ideologically a problem to vote, but rather they believe, those who aren't participating think that they can't make a difference, that, their vote is insignificant. And that's what really needs to change if folks want to increase that number of voter registration.
Well, what factors predicted American Muslims voting in the midterms and then looking ahead to 2020?
The strongest factor that predicted voting in the midterms was engaging a local elected official, and it really underscores the importance of local politics. I think if people get involved in their local politics, they can see that they can make a difference, and it can address some of this apathy that folks feel like they can't change anything by voting.
Well, the number of Muslims in the U.S. is growing, but according to Pew Research, they still only make up a little more than 1% of the population. How much do you think candidates should focus on Muslim voters?
Well, it's a really good question. They certainly only make up 1% of the population overall, but in some key swing states, they make up a very significant percentage of the population and can swing the vote. So places like Ohio or Michigan or Florida, where the difference is laser narrow, when you have Muslims making up 3, 4, 5% of the population of these states, they can make a difference, and so they should be addressed, and their needs should be heard.
Yeah, all of those states, definitely battleground states where we are going to be expecting to see all the candidates make frequent stops leading up to 2020. Dalia Mogahed, Dalia, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.